happy developers, they don't do drugs. So I'll start with who I am. I am, for years, I started off life as a support person. I did first, second, and third line sort of network support. I soon got bored with turning on and off things. So I moved into the world of development. I started off as a polyglot developer. PHP was one of my languages I did, but that was back in PHP 4. And when we chatted earlier, I was told how old that was. And yeah, I eventually specialized in C# so that I wouldn't be, I would be a master of one thing rather than a chancer at many. And I've been a developer now for about 18 years-ish, not really sure. Time goes past and I can't really remember. I like cycling, making beer, and then drinking said beer, which I will be doing during this talk probably. So, happy developers, or developers, are they happy? This is kind of a generic sort of talk. I was thinking PHP 8, then that's come out. All of you should be happy, but you haven't got string contains. Sad times. But this actual talk comes from years of just observing sort of my fellow developers and myself. Really, I've worked in lots of companies that were in my notes I wrote rubbish, but I think that's unfair. I think they were concerned about other things, probably many profits. But I was unhappy as a developer, although I love software development. And I just sort of, when I started off my career, it was very, I worked for some digital agencies, and they were all about the money. They had clients that only had so much money, so you had to do a lot of work. And this sort of, this didn't, this made me unhappy slightly. And as time's gone on, I've become happier, just in case you're worried. But after doing this and after progressing through the ranks, sort of to more senior positions, and I've had a few principal positions, I sort of, over that time, I've come up with 3 steps to success, which I'm trying desperately not to call 3 steps to success because it's terrible. But let me start with the first one. So the first one that I've discovered is that education. People need education. When I left school, I thought, oh, I've done all my learning. That's so not true. As a developer, I think, and I think everyone will appreciate here, learning is part and parcel of the job. I've done more learning and I've taken more exams and probably passed more exams since I've left school than I ever did in school, and just learn, and I've enjoyed it, definitely. My learning sort of stemmed from a position of imposter syndrome, though. Always thinking that we all know what imposter syndrome is, I think, but for those that don't, it's thinking that everyone else is better than you. You're never going to learn as much as you can or know as much as you can, and you're just rubbish. This isn't true in like most of the cases. And I think one of the reasons why this is the educate step is important to me is because I don't want anyone else to go through that sort of imposter syndrome. And unfortunately, I still see it today in even seniors, senior developers. But people generally, or individuals and developers, they want to be invested in. They want to know that a company sort of values them. And if you're just being told to work, if there's someone cracking a whip, it's not going to make you happy. It's not going to like your job. So given the time to learn, I think, is really important. And then through education and through training, people and individuals, developers, they'll be engaged. They'll think the company's investing in me, they're engaged in me, and they'll engage back. Then once they are engaged, they're going to be more productive. It's natural. Happy, engaged people are more productive people. Now, this doesn't have to sort of stop at being a benefit for the company. This will benefit them as an individual. People, given the time to learn, will learn how to learn as well. They'll learn new learning strategies. This has sort of a knock-on effect on their lives outside of work, and can give them so much more confidence. They know now there's nothing to stop them. They can learn new things. They will have a can-do mindset. If I don't know something, I can just go and learn it. And this is something that I found during my life. Whenever time of sort of struggle, I've just started to learn about as much as I can about the thing that I'm struggling with, and it's just helped me be confident. My girlfriend would tell you I'm too confident, but that's a different story. So none of this is really groundbreaking. Everyone knows you need to be educated, but there's a lot of, through my experience, and yours might differ, but a lot of my experience, companies don't really get this. They don't see the value in the training, and sort of the education of their employees. They see the value in the money that they're turning over, but they're also missing out on the rewards then that the company can have, like the improvements in sort of productivity and efficiency that come as sort of a direct result of people learning new skills. And one thing that I'm very keen on, and have seen a lot over the past 10 years, is quality at pace. One of some of this comes from experience, and I've seen a lot of experienced developers be able to do quality at pace. But I've also seen a lot of sort of more junior people, given the right education, can produce that quality at pace. And once you can do things quickly, you can do things efficiently. Everyone saves money. There's also what I call a knowledge baseline. If you've got you've trained everyone to a certain level, you know then that your work will be done at a certain level, and during that training, you will also identify weaknesses in those that people's knowledge, and those weaknesses can be hazardous to an organization. I've seen it myself. I'm trying not to name companies because or give clues to my companies, because you can see it on my LinkedIn page. But one of the companies I work for, everyone left because they didn't give them training, or because it was a toxic place to work. Bit 50-50 in those results. But they were left then with very mediocre staff who weren't trained. And that because they wouldn't spend the time training them, the people then went on to design systems that were inefficient, costly to maintain, and ultimately ended up losing them customers, because those people that were elevated to higher positions didn't have that sort of baseline of knowledge. Conversely, to companies that wouldn't train people, I've seen companies, or I've worked for companies that give sort of whole Friday afternoons or whole Fridays off just for training. They dedicate that for training. A lot of these companies have been client-based, so like agencies or sort of outsourced companies, and they won't do any client work on a Friday afternoon because they've given that over to training. Now, they're losing money. That's, half a day times however many salaries they have to pay. But the benefits they get from that, it wasn't just that people knew more, it was also sort of the social interactivity that people got from doing structured and sometimes unstructured learning together, that made it a better place, and people were happier. And then moving on from education, I think everyone knows that that's important. My next step to success would be enthuse. Everyone wants to be enthused. I'm kind of lucky in the fact that I'm very enthusiastic about my job. When I was a child, I never thought I'd be a developer. I always thought I wasn't clever enough or needed to know maths or something. So just going to work now, I always trying to bring my enthusiasm. I find that enthusiasm goes up and down. If I can be enthusiastic, everyone around me is enthusiastic. Enthusiastic people are happier people. there's a few things that can make things enthusiastic, make people enthusiastic. So some things are like sort of goals, giving people goals, not metric-based goals. So if you praise someone for doing 10 story points in a sprint, that's a terrible goal. Or anything based on metrics is normally not ideal as a way to enthuse people. But a sort of a tangible goal set to someone or an individual or a team, and then communicated to the wider organization. It's a very good way to enthuse someone, and then celebrating the successes in that goal, even if that entire goal hasn't been achieved. Celebrate what has been achieved, and perhaps bring the sort of the failures or the not achieved part of that goal into into a future goal, and then again communicate that. Bear with me. Beer. Driven individuals as well. They're enthusiastic. They're driven. They'll dig deep to do work for the company. They'll want to get things right, and they'll want to get things right the first time, which goes back to the efficiency point. There's a few ways that I've thought of to drive people, and I've tried this, and some of them succeed, some of them don't. I know for myself, I'm very much a praise and approve kind of person. I like to be praised. I don't need it. I'm not needy, but I like to be praised, and I like to have the approval of people around me, both sort of higher and lower. If I come up with something like an architecture or a way of doing something, I enjoy people saying, "Yeah, that's cool." And I think other people, there's a lot of other people who work on that praise and approval sort of thing. Another good thing that I found to drive people is competition. When I was a developer, I was a principal developer at GoCompare. I did a competition called 6 Months of Source. I started this competition by asking people what they would, if they could do anything software-wise to fix problems in the company or with the estate, what would it be? I then made a list of all of those issues, and there was lots of repetitiveness. So I took the top six sort of things that people could fix, and I made them into a competition with AWS, not AWS, Amazon vouchers as the prize, and it worked. People were enthused. They essentially solved problems in their own time that the company wouldn't give time to, and then we had judges from all across the company from different sectors, so it was a product as well as technical competition, and we had critique and Q&A sessions, and that actually brought a lot of people together and got them enthusiastic about it. Another one that the last way to drive people that I found is giving them more responsibility, and not in the scope of sort of job elevation. Let's not just promote people to like a more senior position to give them more responsibility, but perhaps give them other things like taking on a more junior person to help them. A lot of people will be driven by this and see the rewards coming back. Once they get rewards, they become more enthusiastic. And as I said, enthusiasm flows up and down. They will see people junior them being enthusiastic because they were enthusiastic, and the people more senior will see it. It'll be wonderful. Another thing is don't make people or individuals or developers do the same boring stuff day in and day out. There's a lot of repetitiveness in software development. Letting people have the chance to explore new technologies and do proofs of concepts, like in the competition that I ran. That is something that I've always seen enthuses people. And a lot of roles I've had, senior or less junior, I've always tried to instigate some sort of lunch and learn session. I know they're very popular at the moment, or in the places I've worked. But again, that's a chance to for me to be enthusiastic and show people new things or things that I'm enthusiastic about, but also a chance for other people to showcase things that they find enthusiastic. There's two other sort of things that I find enthuse people as well. One is bringing personal life into work. Now I'm not saying like let's all bring our dogs into work, although I've worked in places where we've done that, and that's always good fun. But give people the chance to have that sort of social interaction inside work. Currently, we've got my team's got a social channel, which is just locked down to us, and we've had pictures of all sorts: dogs, cats, houses, latest DIY projects. I think things like that brings the team together, and once your team is a team, they're enthusiastic together, and they will drive things out well. And the last thing I've done in the past with a lot of success for years now is little surprises. The easiest one, which I do all the time, COVID has ruined it, is bringing donuts for everyone. Who doesn't like a good donut? Bring in donuts if you can, even if you don't have to be senior to do most of these things. If you're a junior developer and you want to enthuse your team, bring in some donuts. It always gets everyone sort of talking. Put them somewhere that's not in arm's reach, but a communal space, so then people will talk as well. One other thing that I've done for developers that has always worked is I've bought them all little rubber ducks. I used to have examples on my desk, but my daughter stole them all. But just little rubber ducks. Buy everyone a rubber duck that's got like an outfit on that resembles that person, that individual. And most of the time I get the WTF is this rubber duck, and then we normally have a conversation about rubber duck debugging. And again, people start talking, they become more enthusiastic. Another one which is a bit harder to do if you're more junior is give people some time off. Just give them the afternoon off. Give them a couple of hours off in the afternoon. Tell them to go to the pub as a team, or get some lunch. Pay for the lunch. I've done this a few times as a principal, taking just one of the squads or teams, taking them to the pub, giving them some food, and said, "You stay there as long as you want." That's a commercial thing though, so we can't always do that. But that just a couple of hours out of a week really doesn't make a difference to a company, but it makes a lot of difference to the individual. So my last step to success is empowerment. I think this has become very big in the last couple of years with sort of the move to DevOps, where people are empowered a lot more. But I think this is very important, and it's important to have real empowerment. One second. One company, I won't mention their name, but they had a development director who had said, all of our teams are empowered. This is sort of they're empowered to do what they need to do, when they need to do it, and this is zero blame culture. It wasn't. It was so far from that. So having that fake empowerment is more damaging in a way, I think, than really empowering someone. So how would I empower a team, or how could we empower teams? I think ownership is part of that, and a very big part of that. There's I think 3 groups of things that are a part of ownership. Technologies, obviously, you have to work within sort of certain parameters for technologies. I work in a lot of .NET shops, so I have to use .NET, and there are with that comes sort of Azure hosting, etc. Excuse me. But within that, there's still a big realm of choice to choose from, of technologies and ways to do things. So technologies is a good one. Letting people explore new technologies, or even try technologies that they know work that you as an organization haven't tried yet. The second one will be processes. Let a team choose the process that they want to use. Give them time to experiment with that process. It's their team. They should be allowed to run it how it works for them. The last one, I think, for last big heading for ownership comes under architecture as well. This closely relates to technologies, but I'm very much against the ivory tower sort of architect. I think they should be put on their tower and then the ladder taken away and never come down again. Sorry if any of you are that kind of ivory tower architect, but it just doesn't work. I think the developers or the individual is closer to the problem than these architects are. And I think giving the team or an individual the power to choose that architecture is very important. I think it's a luxury that I've had for some years now, and it's empowered me, and it feels good. And I've then been able to empower other people and enthuse them as well, and educate them. All these. With this ownership of process as well comes sort of the self-organization of teams. When I was in Go Compare, we had I think we had about 8 or 10 squads, and each squad was allowed to choose how they worked, be it Scrum, Kanban, or anything else they chose. And a lot of teams went from Scrum after trying it for a couple of months to then Kanban, and some of them went back to Scrum after a couple of months. Like, don't let them change every sprint or every month or something. Always give time to settle in. Take everything takes time, and I think empowerment, you need to give people time. With that self-organization as well comes writing of own stories. This might seem an obvious one, but sometimes I've seen BAs or product managers present stories and say, here we go, you just do this work, and spoon feed them. And I don't think that's empowerment. I think that's dictatorship. And writing sort of feature level is ideal, but then let the team work with the product person or with their BA to write the stories out from start to finish, as well as acceptance criteria. And also let them decide what's right to build. I think Spotify are a great example of this. The individual teams have their remit of what part of the product they work on, and then based on metrics and user feedback, etc., they know what to build, or they do testing and they can build, and they're in charge of the testing, and it works. That's all part of self-organization empowerment. And don't mess, if you're in a senior position, don't mess with a sprint once it's underway. Let the sprint happen. It's been planned, it's been sorted out way before. Let people, again, it's about giving people time as well. Let them have time. As I mentioned before, zero blame. That is part and parcel of empowerment. You can't empower someone and then blame them when they go wrong. That's not empowerment. You need to let people make their own mistakes. I learned from a great person once who was my mentor that you can't shortcut people's learnings. You need to learn by your own mistakes. And I've seen this many times. I've seen people heading towards a big pit of spikes, but they're not going to know what to look out for to identify a big pit of spikes until they've fallen into that pit of spikes and found out for themselves. Obviously, when we're sort of company and profit and is concerned, you've got to, if they're making a mistake that's going to destroy the company or damage their reputation, then obviously that's something you may have to step in. But if they're going to make a mistake that has very little consequence to the overall big picture, you have to let them do it. That's part of being empowered. And they'll learn, again, education. And all of this comes if you're, again, some of these topics might seem like they're aimed at sort of senior people, but I think everyone can take something from these. But if you are in a sort of position of seniority, you need to support people. That is what you are there for. You need to be able to sort of remove blockers for their ideas and let people's ideas flourish, and then help them make decisions, but don't have that final say. Let the team or the individual have that final say, but help them look at options or explore different avenues. I just lost what my train of thought. Sorry. But yeah, so support them, and perhaps in that supporting is part of going to the retros. Retros are very important as far as I'm concerned. You need to be able to offer solutions inside retros. Everyone in that team needs to be in the retro, whether it's a BA, a developer, a tester, estet, manager. If you are in the position of sort of management and not directly in that team, just be there as sort of a obstacle remover or offer constructive criticism. And this is what I think empowerment does. I think it's very important. So coming to the end of my talk now, this is what I've learned over my years of sort of nearly 20 years of development and climbing up the ranks. And I hope this has given you some ideas. And I think if you do come across any sort of unhappy developers in your day-to-day job, remember, just give them 3 E's. The end.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I used to have rubber duck here somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I do have elephants. I do have a nice shelf full of elephants. So they're
amazing.
stand-ins, but they'd be quite expensive to give everybody in the team a whole elephant, seeing as it's just me. I'd be okay with that. And yeah, I think, a lot to unpack there. I think, yeah, I'm going to go away and think about some of those things, and I can definitely relate to some of them. I think when you mentioned about maybe pairing up people with maybe someone more junior to help them sort of come along, like I've done that and found I get as much as senior junior sort of situation, I get as much out of it as even as they do, having to sort of not as much as teaching them everything, but it's really great to see people grow. And when they've moved into different roles and they've gone, I've started doing that TDD thing that you showed me how to do in my new job, right? That's been really good for me as well. It's another word that's there somewhere, but
I did actually have an opportunity to take on some university. They weren't graduates; they were doing a year in industry. So I was sort of in charge of three students essentially, and they were guinea pigs to my 3 E's. After I'd sort of been down the road of sort of developing them a bit, and the enthusiasm they got. I literally did this step by step, educated, enthused, and empowered, and it was amazing. Like just as I think they were like sponges, being young students, but it's so good to see, and you get, as I said, you get enthused back.
Is that how you typically approach it? Start with the education first, then move on, or is there one particular good starting place out of all the things you mentioned?
I don't think there's one good starting place. I think they're all as important as each other, to be honest. But that is the way that I've done it, because you need to start with that sort of knowledge baseline. If you've got some knowledge in you, then you can start. Then once you've started, you can then enthuse people. And once you've got them enthusiastic, give them the power to go and send them off. Go make wonderful software. And it goes from there.
It does go around social media very so often. Like, what if we spend all this money and train the people? And it's like, but what if we don't train them? No, what if we train them and then they leave? It's like, well, what if we don't train them and they don't leave and they stay?
Yes, so, exactly.
Yeah,
and if they all leave, you might get other trained people coming to you. So, win-win.
Jamie said, do you base the 3 E's on each individual? I'm not entirely sure what he means by that.
So. Yeah, I think I do. One thing, when my first principal role, was not. I learned very quickly. It wasn't a role about software development. It was a role around people and
Yeah.
getting to know the people. And I just gave away everything. I thought, I'm not going to write any code for the first couple of months. And I literally went and sat with every single developer that was underneath me to get to know them, because everyone's an individual. As you say, it is based on individuality, and you've got to know that individual before you can sort of make them enthusiastic. I think my driven section talks about there's different ways to drive people, and that is based on individuals. So, as I said, I'm a praise and approval person, but there's other people like other things, like pizza and beer and stuff. Whatever drives the individual. So yeah, I think the threes are the headline topics, and I think you have to drive down into the individual to go with each of those.
That's cool. Have you done any, obviously you've done this talk, but have you done any sort of blog posts or anything that you go into this in a bit more detail maybe that would be worth reading afterwards?
I haven't. I've been working on my own website now for a long time, so I can start writing blogs. But I think every developer suffers from too busy doing stuff for everyone else. So this is one thing that I hope to go into, and some of my other talks that I've got in my back pocket, I hope to blog about them as well. But I need to get fired or something and have some time to write my own website.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, exactly. As I say, I'll definitely go back and go through that again. I don't see anything else here in the chat. Miles says, "Hi Matt, nice to see your face again." Of the three.
Oh, Miles Cook. Yeah, so I work with Miles. Nice to see you. Nice to virtually see you writing something, Miles. Yeah, I work with Miles. He was my first person I tried to educate and failed. Sorry, Miles. I learned from them.
You see 3Es from the other perspective.
Yeah. Ben Orio. Yeah. So Ben, I work with currently. I think he's stalking me. What did he say? Hey Matt, have you got any tips on finding out? Oh, right. So
which of the 3Es your team is lacking?
Which of what your team is lacking the most? Yeah, I don't know. That's a very good question. I will speak to you about this in work tomorrow. I think it's there's a lot of ways to find out if someone isn't educated or doesn't know what it's a what don't they know? How do you know what someone doesn't know? I think that one of the things I mentioned was that through education, you can find weaknesses. What I've never actually looked at, which I will definitely go away and think about, is how do you find those weaknesses before you try and educate them? And I think the other two are sort of can be seen quite easily. If someone is enthusiastic, you can tell someone is not enthusiastic. If someone isn't empowered, then they can't do anything. I think that I think the education one really is the one that I think is a bit more tricky, and especially some people blag stuff. I've interviewed a lot of people over the years who just lie about their skills. So that's why I think that actually putting them through some sort of educational training will find their weaknesses at that point, because well, they'll probably go, oh my God, I learned this new thing. Or something along those lines. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Good question. He's outside with his chickens, probably. Have you heard of so Jamie Callis, have you heard of the Pambo management style? It's very much in line with your approach. I haven't. I wish I had a pen. I know, notepad. I will though. I will learn. Pambo. I will thank you, Jamie. Is it okay to drop a book link in the chat? I guess it's not up to me.
Yeah, go for it. Should be able to. I've just found one on Amazon, Managing People Better, a new manager's story. So that sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that. I've just come up with this myself, and it started off as what developers want, but then I learned to find that developers want money, pizza, and beer. So it wasn't really the basis of a good chat, good talk. So yeah, so I was written by a guy in Cardiff. Oh, awesome. yeah, I'll have a read and perhaps go for a beer with the man in Cardiff. Any more questions?
Nothing in the chat, nothing in Slack.
Feel
Yeah.
free to hit me up, anyone. Matt _lethargic on Twitter. Not that I tweet a lot, but I will reply.